it's important for our kids to see us model what it looks like to really apologize and not just saying sorry, why I'm sorry. And, I would sometimes try to explain maybe where I was coming from, not necessarily as an excuse, but just to help them maybe have some understanding beyond themselves as well. Mm-hmm.
Mother's Day is now just 1 week away, and this series is continuing on its pursuit to uplift, challenge, and celebrate all moms for different backgrounds and various stages. I've learned something new from each mom I've talked to, and this conversation will be no different. For the 4th episode of our Motherhood series, I'll be talking with my friend, Joy McMahan.
Hey, guys.
Joy is a former educator and office manager, but is currently a volunteer leader for the College Girl Ministry at First West, willingly pouring herself into the next generation of women. Oh, yeah. And she's a mom. So, Joy, thanks for coming out today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Before we jump into everything, I just got to know, what made you want to work with college girls? How did that come about?
Well, when Jericho Jones was our college minister.
Oh, that was about 6 years ago, right?
Right. And he wanted to start home groups. He actually asked me to start a young professionals home group for girls.
Yeah, the Young Pros. That was me. I was in that class.
Right. And I agreed to do that. And then one Sunday he brings me the materials and he says, I think I've decided I want you to do the college girls. And I was reluctant at that time because my oldest child, Michael, was that same age. And I wasn't sure that those girls would respond well to me. I prayed about it and I agreed to give it a try. On the first night, I had one girl come. I had all this food and everything prepared, and she was really sweet to stay, though I might have run for the hills, but she stayed. And then the second week we had 4 girls, and from that it grew.
They like something.
They do. We have a great time. And so now our group is anywhere from 15 to 20 on Tuesday nights. And so after raising boys, it's been a lot of fun to work with college girls. They're completely different, and I really enjoy it.
Well, great. Yeah. And that's just awesome. Like, what a testament to stepping out of your comfort zone. You never know what you're missing out.
That's right. That's right.
And thank you for doing all that and for continuing doing all that.
Sure.
I just know that's a lot of work and all.
It's fun.
All right, but let's get to it. This is why everyone wanted to listen today.
All right. Okay.
So, Joy, how many children do you have and what are their names and ages?
Okay, so I've got 3 boys. I've got Michael, who's 24, and then I've got twins, Joseph and James, who are 20. And they all just had birthdays in April, so I'm getting used to those new ages. I no longer have any teenagers. So,
all right, so you're an empty nester now.
Yes.
How does it feel to have raised, 3 grown men? Are you more proud of yourself or them?
Well, I have to say I'm more proud of them. They are delightful adults to be around. I enjoy spending time with them. But I think the thing that I'm the most proud of is that they are all following the Lord. And that has been such a great blessing to see. Michael, our oldest, is, and so that's fun. We have a wonderful daughter-in-law, Haley, and he's in dental school in Kansas City. So they're far away from us, but she works at a church there and he serves too at that church.
Okay,
and so to see him doing that, and they have a small group, and just really proud of them and what they're doing. And then James and Joseph are freshmen at Louisiana Tech, and they're living on campus. They're actually roommates, and that's turned out pretty good so far.
Fun,
Yes, they went from having their own rooms at home to now sharing a room in the dorm.
But that's on another level.
That's right. But that's gone well, and they have gotten really involved at Temple Baptist in their college department, and just have found a great group of friends. They're in small groups with their friends. And I know in college, there's so many options. It's kind of like a 3-ring circus, and they could be doing lots of different things. But as of right now, as far as I know, they are making really wise choices. And so I guess that's what makes me proud.
Yeah, they're continuing to make those wise choices without you standing there next to them.
Tell them they have to. That's right.
That's awesome. Did you always want to be a mom?
I did. So I grew up an only child, and my parents were a little older when I came along. They'd actually been married for 17 years when they adopted me. And so it was, my parents were older, It was a very quiet house, you know, and so I'd go over to friends' houses and there would be, most of my friends had sisters and there were lots of these girls around and it was just a lot of fun. And so and for me as a mom, I definitely wanted to have more than one child.
Yeah.
And just to have a little bit more excitement in the house.
Woo,
Yes.
yeah. A little bit more joy. So before you were a mom, what did you think it'd be like?
Well, I thought it would be a lot of work. I knew it would be a lot of work. But I thought that if I put a plan in place and I stuck with a schedule, you know, it would all be manageable. It would be fine. And, I looked forward to seeing my children grow and learn. I had a very Pollyanna view of parenting. I tend to see things with the glass half full.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I saw parenting. It'll be fine. It'll be great.
We'll work out.
And yes, exactly. And it did not take long, like, hours before we left the hospital to realize that there's no perfect formula. They're not going to do, just like you think they're going to do. There's surprises around every corner.
You're supposed to get it, but they're newborns. Like you're supposed to be in bed at it's 5. Like,
right.
It's 5 a.m. What are you doing? You're off your schedule.
That's right. That's right. And I did. I had read a book that I thought was just going to be the secret to having a baby that slept through the night. And it was just, I wasn't any one of those tired moms and all that. But, well, it didn't quite work out that way.
Yeah, no perfect formula.
No.
Mm-mm. So what was it like raising twins?
Well, when they were babies, I mean, it's really kind of a fog. I did have to keep a schedule with the twins or I would have been up all night feeding them. If one of them woke up, everybody ate. And, so we did that. So the first 2 years were kind of foggy, but then, they were just each other's playmate. And then Michael was a great big brother. He's 4 years older than they are. And so he was just really good to help me just be an extra pair of hands. And I did have help. I don't want people to think that I didn't have help. We had a wonderful college student named Holly who would come for a couple of hours a day so that I could run to the grocery store. Or if we did need to get out, I had an extra pair of hands. And so, it was hard. And people at church didn't realize the twins could walk until they were like 4 because I always had them in a stroller because they would go different directions.
Yeah, it's just too hard.
That's right. That's
right.
So, but I will say that one of the harder parts of raising twins was just comparison. People would compare them to one another. And, that was hard, especially in school, with grades and things like that. And one story from kind of them being compared and one it was heartbreaking and happy all at the same time. But when they were in 5th grade at our elementary schools is when they do the student of the year. Yeah. And they both were chosen to go through the interview process. And the way they do that is with a series of questions and interviews and things that they do. And they get scores for each of those things. And then they total up the scores. And then whoever has a high score gets the student of the year. So I knew that was going on one day. And that by the end of the day, we would know who had won. Yeah. And honestly, I just kind of prayed that neither of them would win.
Yeah.
I just thought it would be easier in my house. If just, let's just let somebody else have that. And so I got a phone call from the assistant principal about 1:30 in the afternoon. And she says, Joy, we have a problem. And I said, okay. And she said, we've done all of our interviews. We've done everything, looked at all their grades and scores and everything. And they have come to the exact same number. And she said, we've never had that happen before between even just 2 students, much less twins. And she said, so we brought them back in. We've asked them one more question to try to determine who was going to be our student of the year. She said, we know who that's going to be. She said, but I want to give you the option. I can go ahead and say now who it's going to be, or you can have them come home and you can celebrate that they were both winners. They were both at the top and kind of have a night to celebrate. And then tomorrow morning we'll name who the winner is. And of course, that's the option that I chose. And so I did get to celebrate them together that night. My husband and I did. And then, then one of them won. And, it was... Thank goodness my boys have always been each other's cheerleaders. Yeah. And I'm sure that there was a little heartache there for a minute, but it didn't last very long.
Yeah.
So just the comparison sometimes is hard. I know that's with siblings no matter what, but it seems like with twins.
Just extra, like in your face.
Right.
It's just kind of, everyone's like, oh, either y'all look exactly alike or y'all don't look alike.
Right.
And ask all the silly questions that go along with that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you describe yourself as a mom?
Okay. So I'm pretty realistic. I try to keep realistic expectations for my kids. I'm pretty proactive. Structure is kind of loose. I like to have some structure built in, but, letting some things happen and not everything be scheduled. Yeah. And then I'm kind of non-conventional too.
Okay. So, not conventional. What do you mean by that?
The reason I said that is that I feel like for our family, we have chosen things that are important to us that are not important to a lot of people.
Okay.
Like, things that are eternal for our kids, not necessarily the things that all the other parents want their kids to be super good at or good. We wanted our kids to be, as we were raising them, to have, whether it's, in educationally or in sports or whatever, something that they could take with them past 12th grade.
Yeah.
And so that was important to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some not so fun parts of motherhood? What has been some difficult parts?
Of course, just seeing them hurt or let down, and then not being able to help that, not being able to help them. That was more when they were older, just having disappointments in life and not being able to fix it. Because I do tend to like a schedule, I was not a super fan of birthday parties, chaotic times. I'm really more I'm just more of I like the everyday life. That's what I enjoy parenting. And so those special days, school field trips, birthday parties, all the chaotic things where I guess I felt out of control. Maybe we're coming up with a theme here. But when I felt out of control, those were the parts of parenting that weren't as fun to me. I was ready to get back to our house and back to some structure. But and really, I guess just seeing the hardest thing, though, was just seeing the things that they had wanted not come about, or people hurt their feelings. I mean, I know I have boys, but there still was times, usually girls are the ones that have the drama, but there were times when we had hurt feelings and friendship problems and things like that. And to see that happen is hard.
Yeah. So what was your discipline style?
Steve and I were Steve's my husband, and we were really clear expectations were very important to us. And then, along with that, if there was, an expectation that wasn't met, the consequences needed to fit the behavior. Timeouts were probably our most, when they were little, were our biggest to disciplinary tactic. Spanking when needed. That wasn't something that we did very often. Taking things away that were prized possessions, when they're little, whether that's a toy or as they got older, an electronic something or PlayStation or whatever, all the way up to the keys and the cell phone. We've had to do that before. But, and then really too, just letting some natural consequences happen to let them learn for themselves.
Yeah. So natural consequences, can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. So if one of them came down the stairs in a pair of shorts and it's 30 degrees outside, I wasn't going to get all upset about that. Okay, well, you're going to be cold. You're just reminding them of what the weather's like.
And whatever, Mom.
Yeah. And so, then the next day they'd freeze all day. And the next day they would, wear jeans to school or whatever. Just not trying to fix everything for them. Yeah. If they had, if they bombed a test, or if they had a argument with a friend, or if they whatever, just not trying to be the mom that made everything just perfect.
Yeah.
Let them figure out how to work things out themselves.
Asher does little things like that right now. I mean, he's only 16 months old.
Right.
He can't quite talk, but I can tell he's getting frustrated because he can't do whatever he's trying to do. I'm like, no, you can do it. I just kind of purposely, I won't say suffer, but figure it out a little bit more. Because sometimes some things you need to do a little bit more effort.
Right.
It'll happen.
And it helps them grow too.
Yeah.
That's just part of the learning process.
And then eventually I will, if it's okay, I will help him.
Yes,
Because he's still a baby. But, but I agree with your mentality there. Some things, they should figure it out a little bit more for themselves.
Right.
Yeah. Do you feel that there is anything you could be better at?
Okay, always. There's always things I could be better at. We did mention control earlier. So loosening up a little bit, we'd go on a vacation, or we would have, I'd always have a schedule written out of what we're going to do.
That one.
Yes.
I kind of like a loose agenda myself.
Okay.
It's not an agenda.
Right.
It's not
we don't want to waste our time.
Yeah. Right. We're only here for so long. I'm feeling you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just loosen up a little bit, and then consistency always. I mean, just especially when they're little and you're trying to train them on, whether it's manners or obedience or whatever it is, just being consistent. And that sometimes it's just
or potty training.
Right. Yes. It wears you out. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
it is tough. That's something people always talk about. Be consistent, be consistent. Man, is it hard to do.
It is hard. When you're tired and it's at the end of the day. And
then for yourself, you're like, it's not really that big of a deal to me. But but then, if I let it go, it's going to be a big deal for them down the road.
Exactly.
But it's still, gosh.
Well, and two, for me, another thing I could have been better. It's just selflessness. There's just times when, I didn't want to be bothered with whatever it was they needed, or, there's just that, just sometimes wanting to do what I wanted to do, not worrying about what other people think of my kids, if they're pitching a fit at the store, taking that time to talk to them right there, even though you're in the line at the grocery store about why we're not going to get that candy bar, instead of just saying, we'll talk about it later, and because I'm embarrassed, trying to, make sure that they understand right there, what we need to do. So that was something. And then apologizing when I've done something that I shouldn't do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's, it's interesting that you bring that up, because that's something that Sarah in our first episode, had mentioned too. Can you tell us why apologizing is, it's something important or something we should talk about more?
Well, I think that it's important for our kids to see us model what it looks like to really apologize, and not just saying sorry, why I'm sorry. And, I would sometimes try to explain maybe where I was coming from, not necessarily as an excuse, but just to help them maybe have some understanding beyond themselves as well. And so I just think it's important to model that, because, I have to say my kids are pretty good at apologizing. I mean, I think that's something that I don't know, maybe that stuck.
Yeah. Because I think at large society just doesn't, we all like to do the blame game.
Right.
Yeah. So it's something that'll make them stand out by having that, for sure.
Right.
So how do you define being a good mom?
Well, for me, being willing to look at your children individually and see what they need at a specific time or stage. Not all kids fit into one mold. And at the same time, while you're doing that, giving them room to grow and figure out some things on their own, kind of like you mentioned before.
Yeah, it sounds like a tough balance, but something very wise and good to do. So what mom from the Bible is a good example of that? I
thought of Eunice, the New Testament, the mother of Timothy. She taught her son to love and follow and serve Jesus.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought her up. I think that makes her so special is that she taught her son Timothy, who, by the way, became Paul's understudy. So it's not just some guy, in part by living her own life, just sold out to God. She's one of those lesser known people of the Bible, but it's really impactful. There's a whole verse devoted to her. This is what scripture says about her in Timothy. It says, this is 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5. It says, I have been reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I'm persuaded now lives in you also. And I'm like, man, what a legacy to know that, to have it known about you and your mother and your grandmother, that you have such a sincere faith. That's wow.
It is. And that was something that was very important to me to instill in my children, is that knowing Jesus and having that no matter what, Jesus never changes.
Yeah.
And my mother was a woman of faith, and, hopefully we're passing this down now to, our boys, and then they can pass it on. I mean, it's how we grow the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
Is through that sincere faith.
Yeah. All right. This just rolls on to the next question. What do you think God expects of us? Well,
I think God expects us to love and nurture them at each stage in a way that points them to Christ and gives glory to God. Deuteronomy 6, 5 through 7 is kind of the model behind that.
Okay. Can you read for us what Deuteronomy says?
Sure. It says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These words that I'm giving you today are to be in your heart. Repeat them to your children. Talk about them when you sit in your house and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up.
Man, it sounds like the things that, Eunice must have done on some level. She had to. Right. They said about her. Just sounds like a lot of intentionality there.
Right.
Now that your kids are grown, what are 3 things you hope sticks with them?
Well, thinking about this, I think to love God and love people through humility and kindness and service, then to work hard at whatever you do, and and that your words matter.
Man, words do matter so much. Just word choice, how we use the word, the tone of the word. I'm glad you told. I hope that sticks too.
Right.
So in what ways did you try to lead your children to Christ?
So when the boys were younger, we used different things like the ABC Bible and some other children's resources to help them know Jesus. We loved the Veggie Tales and different things like that. Yes. And so just to make them familiar with Bible stories and, it was important for me that they had a Bible and learning how to find things in the Bible and, things like that. Being sure of their salvation was important to me, too. So we were very intentional with conversations about what it meant to put their faith in Jesus. I went through a period in my college years of doubt about my salvation. Just did I know what I was doing at 8, And so and I wrestled with that and had some doubt with that. And I think it's because I couldn't clearly remember it.
Yeah.
And so it was really important for me when the boys came to us and said, all of them at different times. So Michael was in 2nd grade and I think the boys were in 3rd grade. And I wanted to hear them say the words. All of them through Vacation Bible School, answered that altar call type thing. And so another adult, precious adults, were there when they actually said, yes, I want to follow Jesus, or, but I wanted to hear it for myself. And it was not because I wanted to be the one that heard it, but it's because I wanted to be able to tell them later in life, this is what you said on this day. And I believe that you meant it, because in your 2nd grade heart, in your 3rd grade heart, you understood what you were doing. And so it was really important for me, to help them be sure of their salvation.
Yeah, because it can really torment you.
It can.
I worked at a camp where when during that time came, the altar call or whatnot, the time to make a decision type of time. They gave counselors index cards for the children to fill out. So it's like in their own words, they write down what decision they were making, whatever that decision was. It could be I want to read my Bible 10 times a day or whatever it was. Here it is. And we made copies of it and yada, yada. And I thought that was a really cool thing.
Yes. So and then as they got older, as far as, leading them to Christ, the other voices in their lives, there were other Christian voices in their lives that helped them along the way. They had wonderful life group leaders, bosses. The boys worked at the thrift store and had Philip Thigpen and other people there, really pouring into them. Michael worked for Robbie Compton and had people,
at the mattress store.
At the mattress store, yes. And so had him as a sounding board and someone to pour into him. Their friends, they have had some great friends who've pushed them along the way as accountability partners and things like that.
All right. So did you play an active part in selecting, a village for them?
I would say yes. Because it was important for us. It was important to us for them to have certain voices in their life. As they got older, not as much control, but especially when they were younger, being a part of our church, being in the children's ministry, when I did work as an office manager, I had to have some babysitting type things. And I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just anybody. So it was important for us to find establish that village.
Yeah. Cause then by that point, when they are older, they kind of know the mold of what should be in their lives.
Right.
So maybe they're I want this kind of person to be my mentor.
Right.
Because I know for me, by the time I was in high school and even maybe my late middle school, I was already looking for certain people, and some of them were my youth director and some of them weren't, but looking for certain adults that I knew it kind of already aligned with what I thought was good.
Right.
But what I thought was good has also helped established by my parents too.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
I gotcha. To your knowledge, did the boys ever question their faith? Did your intentions work out?
Well, yes and no. So, I've had 2 of the boys have been, well, I guess we'd say rebaptized. And that really came out of a desire I think they felt a stirring in their heart to make sure their commitment was real, and then to have their baptism on the right side of that.
Yeah.
I know that's something we talk about a lot at our church right now, is making sure your baptism is on the right side of your salvation, and that they both, just for that assurance, wanted to do that. And so I have 2 of them that have gotten baptized a second time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But now we all know.
That's right. Right. It's all good.
Yeah. And what was special about the ABC Bible?
So this was a little Bible that we would read at bedtime before we went to bed. And so there was a verse for each letter of the alphabet. So like the A was a soft answer turns away wrath.
Okay.
And then there would be a little story where, Timmy and Susie would have an argument, and, Susie would snap and sass or whatever. And so it's just kind of reinforcing what that verse meant, what it looked like if you had a soft answer, what it looked like if you didn't.
Yeah.
And so that was the little ABC Bible. And it also helped them memorize scripture. We would, talk through those, and, we would go through it. We didn't just stop at Z. We would turn back around and do it some more. So, then as they were older, and we did that for several years. So the scripture would get a little bit richer to them as they understood more about it.
Awesome. Okay. I might have to check that out, see if they still sell those.
Yes. I hope they do. They should.
Yeah. Was there any specific scriptures that you try to teach them other than, what you guys did with the ABC Bible?
Yes. So Ephesians 4:32 says, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving one another, just as God also forgave you in Christ." And then James 1:19, "Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger." Just having boys, and I can't just kids in general. I mean, everybody can get a little snippy sometimes, and maybe not kind to each other, and just showing that this is what God expects of us is how to behave. And so then I had, and this is not new. I mean, this is not my idea. I heard this somewhere else. And I can't remember where I would give credit. But so then I had these 2 verses on a whiteboard on our refrigerator for years. And then under these 2 verses, it said, these were questions to think about before you spoke. Because remember, one of the things that was important to me was that words matter. Is it true? What you're going to say? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And then is it clear? And, if you can say yes to all of those things before you say them, you're probably going to be okay as far as with what you're saying, So
this is a really good question.
Yeah.
Especially, is it necessary and kind?
Right. Sometimes we say things that just are not necessary to say. Right.
You need to say that. And especially if it's not kind.
Right.
Like, what's the purpose in that?
And, siblings get on each other's nerves, and unkind things can come out, so just trying to help remember that. And then 1 Timothy 1:7, one of my boys went through a stage of really being afraid, especially of storms. And so just learning, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind. I think that was helpful. And then just the fruits of the Spirit from Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And I love little songs. And so we would sing the songs that went with some of these verses. We sang the songs to learn the books of the Bible, just anything that could get that into their head so that when they needed it, they could remember it. It was important to us.
Yeah. Those are some good ones. I have to add that to my little list. I have a little short story. When I went to seminary about 10 or so years ago, I was there for about a year. And one of my classes, about Sunday school, and the structure of that and why it's important. But one of our last projects, we were tasked with okay, if you had the ideal Christian parents and the ideal Christian child, and y'all were at church every day, that the doors were open, what should that child know by the time they're 18, grown? So they were there forever. What are we producing, basically, as a church? And goodness, from that point on, I'm just oh man, what should my child know? And I started making a little list of for different stages of life. And I think right now I have 10.
Okay.
Because I'm trying not to I don't, it's one of the strategical things. I don't want to overwhelm them. I mean, my baby's not even 2, but
right. Yes.
But there are shorter scriptures and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think it's cool. I have to make sure. I'm pretty sure I do have Ephesians on my list. I have to add these other ones too, though.
Very good.
Yeah. So did you guys ever do a family Bible study time? And would y'all discuss what was taught at at church?
Well, we would try every now and then to do a family Bible study, but like the structure of things, like trying to just sit down at 8 o'clock at night and do it, or at the dinner table or whatever, it just didn't always work.
Yeah.
So, it would last a few days or weeks, and then it would, just kind of, we would lose steam. But I did, often ask the boys, what did you learn in that life group? What stuck out to you from the sermon? Just things like that, so that it would remind them that, oh, I need to be listening. Mom might ask me, and just to know. And even now I teach 4th grade life group, and I'll tell my kids sometimes, the life group kids, now, if your mama asks you what you learned today, on the way home from church, don't say, I don't know. I mean, this is what we learned, to make sure they, know what's going on.
What was the main point?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, from the time the boys were really little, and this is something that my parents did too. So this was kind of a carry down, was we always celebrated Advent. Okay. And we would do that we had a wreath on our kitchen table, and it had 4 candles. And, now I've seen lots of different meanings for the 4 candles, but for us it was just a way to prepare for the advent of Christ, and that is his coming. He's coming. And so it would start on, it was always right after Thanksgiving, so it's the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas, and so that first Sunday is about the prophecy, and so the scripture that we would read, and I would use different materials, but that for that week it was all about what the prophets had said about Jesus coming. Okay. And so what Isaiah had said, and what Zechariah had said, and what Micah had said. And so that would be scripture. And the boys would fight over, at first, when they were little, I would not let them light the candles, but they would fight over who was going to blow out the candle, so we always had to, we had to sit and listen, and then we get to blow the candle. Yeah. And so then the second Sunday, so we had the prophecy, and then we would do announcement. And that was where, Gabriel had come to Mary and Joseph separately and said, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. Jesus is coming, And so then the third week was the birth candle. And I'm talking about actually Jesus being born and what that looked like and all that story, and how, that was, the scripture was through the Gospels. And then the last one was when the shepherds came and gave the gifts. And so that's like leading up to Christmas and the gifts. And so, that was just a way that they became very familiar with early. This is what we're going to do. We're going to put this wreath on the table, and Mom's going to light candles, and we're going to talk about it. And anyway, I think it's funny because they can tell you all of that usually. Now we have to, as they got older, we'd pull them out, and they never could remember that first one, prophecy. For some reason, that one was hard to remember. But, I do think that has stuck. And so I hope that they'll carry that on with their family in some way.
I think it's just a great way to also keep the focus of Christmas on what it's supposed to be on. Too.
Right.
We're making that time out to do that versus all the other things that kind of happen around that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then we also, around Easter time, we would do the resurrection eggs at Easter to tell the story of the last week of Jesus's life here on earth. And that was just another tangible way for them to see it. And what that is, it's like a little egg carton, and it's got the 12 eggs in it. And the first one, you open it up and it has a donkey in it. And it's, Palm Sunday, Jesus coming in to Jerusalem riding on a donkey. And so you tell the story of Jesus's last week on earth from there's a little, in one of the eggs are praying hands for the Garden of Gethsemane. And then in one, there's a cross that's made out of 3 nails to show that, Jesus was nailed to the cross with the 3 nails. And then you've got a little piece of linen to show what they wrapped him with. And it goes all the way to the second to last egg is a rock, to the stone that was rolled in front of the tomb. And then the last egg is empty to show that Jesus is alive. And so it's just something for them to hold, something for them to shake. I mean, they are boys. They needed they weren't just going to sit there and listen. They needed something to hold and make it tangible, and to really tell the story. And again, I use that now with my 4th graders, and they love it. So the resurrection eggs were always a good thing. So I tried to use just everyday things, tangible things they could do, see, touch, feel to help them learn more about who God is and what it means to follow Jesus and what he did for us.
Yeah. So. Awesome. Yeah. And all of that sounds super important and very practical too. I just know also just for me and my own life experience, it was just nothing to see my own mother or my dad too, reading their Bible.
Right.
There. It was definitely real for them, and just seeing them, practically living, in a practical way, just simply reading their Bible was like, oh, Like, this is real.
Right.
It wasn't a staged performance of
Right.
like, oh, we look pretty. We go to this building on this day for these many hours and then come home, it's over with.
Right. Right.
Back to the quote unquote real life. Like, no, like that was real life.
Right. Exactly.
So, like, and I think that always carries weight. Just living it out like Eunice did.
Right.
And sincere faith.
Right. That sincere faith. Exactly.
Yeah. What role did the church play in parenting?
Okay. So for us, church, well, for me, church had always been like my happy place. That's where my closest friends were, the people that, you know, I hung around with. And I wanted that for my boys as well. I didn't want them to feel like, oh, I'm going to go to church. You know, I wanted it to be, oh, we get to go to church. And so thank goodness we never really did run into that. I know a lot of families do. And, you know, this is the other thing about my boys and parenting. I know parents who have done it way better than me, and their kids have chosen a path that makes them sad, you know, and so there's nothing that I did right. It is by the grace of God. I mean, you know, just trying to put some of these things into practice, but, you know, so we never did reach that point where we had to force them to go to church.
Yeah.
They enjoyed being there. You know, I'm thankful for our church, for First West, for providing them with good biblical activities and programs, camps, fun things, and, you know, really to opportunities to serve.
Yeah.
Beginning young. I mean, different pastors that we've had along the way have really focused on service and what that can look like. You don't have to wait till you're an adult to serve God, whether that's serving within the church walls or without the church walls. And, you know, I know I'm just really grateful for our church for what they've done to provide those service opportunities. And when James and Joseph worked at the thrift store, just that was a whole, I mean, they were working, getting paid, but they got to see ministry done and see people be the hands and feet of Jesus every day. And I think that gave them a life-size picture of how fortunate they are.
Yeah.
You know, and then just to see what it looks like to really help people and how to do it biblically, you know,
with a happy heart.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's great. Like when kids are given the opportunity to serve, it just makes them more compassionate and generous people. You know, and just generous with their time and their money and their talents, all that. You know, being generous is one of the things I hope to instill in Asher. That's one of my three.
Yes,
and
that's good. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just really glad you brought that up. And also, I just have to say, I feel like First West, I know we're kind of bragging about it today, but that, like, their heart of service is one of the things that has, you know, draw me to it. And then I'm proud to say that, you know, I just feel like we do a really good job of serving people in our community.
Yes.
You know, we're really intentional about that.
Right.
Like, to my knowledge, I mean, maybe I don't know enough, but to my knowledge, every life group, which is like every Sunday school group, is highly encouraged to find a place to serve. Right. You know, right. And I know we've been scratching our heads trying to find one for right now, like what group we can go to. We do have a few things on the docket. But,
things to serve.
Yeah. But I know, like, my husband's life group, I think they do the soup kitchen.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, that's theirs. So we're really deeply, you know, rooted in that into the community. We're not just, you know, inwardly focused. Right. And I always liked that.
Me too.
Okay, so we're going to pivot just a little bit, and we're going to, you know, change directions. And I want to hear about what's, you know, special about your mom. What are some favorite things about your mom?
My mom was a wonderful mom. She loved with everything she had. She loved holidays. She loved traditions, and, you know, a lot of the things that we do around holiday time, you know, really things that she instilled in me, and I appreciated. I didn't appreciate them maybe as much as, you know, when I was younger, but then as a mom, I just thought, oh, those were so good. Mom was on point. So, and my mother was always present. Like, there was none of this girls' night or go on a girls' trip. My mom didn't do any of that. I mean, it was like she was there all the time, you know, and she even taught at the school that I went to. So we went to school together from first grade to 12th grade, you know. So my mother was very present. She never got tired of me, and she was a wonderful grandmother. She loved my boys, and so she never tired of any of that. And she wrote me typed me a letter almost every day I was at Tech. Mom was a typing teacher.
Sweet.
She was a typing teacher. And so she would sit down at her typewriter, and it was on pink paper. Oh. And she would type me, and she would tell me what was going on. Even if we had talked on the phone, she would tell me again, what was going on and how much she loved me and how proud she was of me and how much she missed me and was looking forward to us, the next time I was going to be home. And so we always, my roommate, Amy, and I would laugh, and because I would read them out loud. And I think, in some ways it was kind of not to make fun, but it was just, I think my roommates loved to hear what she had to say, because she was always so, yes. Yeah. And so she would always say, she signed off, blessed and thankful. Oh. We are blessed and thankful, Mom, love you, Mom. And so, that's kind of a term that I use a lot now, blessed and thankful.
Oh, so, okay. Another thing that passed down.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So I got a special question. Did you ever write her back?
I did. I did not do it every day, but I did write her back. And I'll have to say, both of my parents have passed away, and I was cleaning out their house just about 9 months ago, and I found the letters.
Oh, man.
My mommy kept them. And so, and it's just like her. I really am. I'm not surprised. That just fit right into how her name was May, how my mom was. And so it was sweet that she hung on to those. So she was a great mom.
Yeah, it's very special.
She was a great mom.
So what are the top 3 things that you would say that she taught you?
Okay. So she was all about manners. She would, before I leave the house, she would tell me, my maiden name was Mackie, and she would say, remember, you're a Mackie. Don't go out there and do something that's going to embarrass our name, And so manners were important to her, all of that. So manners, and then loving people and serving them. My mother loved very big. I said that earlier. She loved big. She loved her friends. She loved our neighborhood, the people that lived around us, our church. She just was always there for whoever needed her. And then my mom was a very good listener. Okay. She would stop whatever she was doing, and sit down and listen to all of my words.
All of it.
And I had a lot of words. And so it was now, being a mom myself, boys don't have as many words, but sometimes they do. And I think, oh, wow, and my mom did this, and she never tired of it.
Wow. Man, what a legacy. There's just some good things right there. And it looks like she tried to pass down the one about being a good listener to you, to you, and the good manners and all that.
Oh, yes.
Looks like that legacy is keeping on.
Yes.
That's good. So what's your favorite part about being a mom?
I like the everyday things. I like the sitting around the table for meals or for breakfast or whatever we're doing. I loved reading to my kids. I love to read, and I loved reading to my kids. When I was teaching school, I loved to read to my school kids. That's just one thing that I loved. I loved car rides. We would sing, to whatever music was going, on the radio or whatever we'd put in to listen to. They had some great friends, and we had a little play group that we started when Michael was little. There were several moms that were the same, had kids the same age, and we started a play group. I loved that kind of thing. Bath time, just any time where it was hands-on, one-on-one, face-to-face, eyeball to eyeball. Those were my times. We loved games. Our family loves to play games, and we still do that. When they come home at Christmas or when we're all together for different holidays or whatever it is, we'll pull out, board games or card games. And beach trips, we had, epic phase 10 games going that would last days at a time, and so I just love that kind of stuff. And now having adult kids is so much fun. They're people that I like to hang out with. They're not just my kids. Okay. They're people that are, these people are fun to talk to, fun to play games with, fun to go to a restaurant with, just...
Yeah. So, okay. Well, it's good to know I have something to look forward to.
Yes, that is true. You will.
Have y'all transitioned to being friends now, or just a special advisory role? Or
I think with Michael being older and married, we definitely have reached that more of the friends stage. We still do, advise them on things, but we actually got to go visit them about a month ago. And it was the first time, I think, that we had been just with the two of them, and then my husband and I, and it was like two couples going out to dinner and hanging out, and there was really no need to parent anything, and that was that was nice. With James and Joseph still being in college, they're still decisions ahead and things going on, that they need advice for. Not as much. And trying to pull back a little bit, not be, need to know every single thing that's going on, giving them some space to fly.
Okay. So what is some advice you'd give to a mom that's in a stage below you?
Family time is important. And I think nowadays we can have our kids involved in endless activities. Good things. They're not bad things. But when you are, there's no night of the week that you're home where you can sit down together as a family. I think that is detrimental. And so I would say to moms, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do every sport. You don't have to do every activity. Pick maybe one thing for, per child or whatever. And maybe not even per child, one season at a time. Just spend family time together. To me, that's just, your kids will talk to you. You'll find out things, when you're so busy and they're exhausted, it just doesn't always translate to family time. And then, relax and have fun with your kids. Watch a goofy movie together, or, we had some great beach vacations and other vacations. My boys have lots of funny stories about, mostly making fun of me and my schedule, but, just the times that we were together as a family are so fun. And then I would say too, embrace your child's God-given personality.
Yeah.
They are made special and unique. They are not a clone of their brother or sister, nor of you. And just to embrace that God-given personality, I think can be so important and make them feel valued.
Yeah. I mean, I think all that's some real solid advice, especially that last one, because, you can't be your parents.
Right. That's right. And I really don't want them to be mean.
And then and then you'll have the whole different resentment and unnecessary, and then everyone's watching like, oh, this is painful.
Right.
Yeah. So that's good stuff there. Okay. It's time for my favorite question.
Okay.
What is something your children do that is goofy or weird that you just love?
Well, I do think all of my kids are goofy. I'm goofy. I mean, our whole family's goofy. I think we've got some quirks about us. But so Michael, my oldest, he will break into his little own one-man dance party pretty much at any moment. And in anywhere. And he thinks that's funny, and we all have to laugh too. So Joseph is my one that is going to make sure all the doors are locked.
Okay.
Before bed every night.
Not Stephen?
Yeah, no. No matter, no, Steve leaves garage doors up. So no, Joseph's making sure everything is make sure that we're safe, we're in. There's even some curtains that I don't close at night, but if he's home, they're closed. Yeah, okay. He's all about that. He's our safety patrol. And then James we laugh because he kind of goes into his own little world. He can become hyper-focused, and if he has on headphones or earphones or whatever, he'll just belly laugh, and it shakes the whole house if he found something funny, and you're like, what is he watching? What is he listening to? And so he can become, very immersed in that. And something else that's interesting about the boys, James and Joseph, they kind of came up with their own names for one another. And this was like when they were just starting to talk.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah. I mean, they were little. And so we still use those names now sometimes when we're talking, and like if they'll text each other, they use that name. But for Joseph, it was Joph. And then for James, it was Jen. And I think actually James is the one that came up with these two names, but that was their little twin communication thing.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I just love that. So Joph and John? Jen. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. Nothing for Michael.
I mean, some people call him Mike or Big Mike or whatever, but just Mike. I call him Michael. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Joy, it has been a joy having you here with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Just a lot of good nuggets there.
So my name is Joy, and this is the Story of the Middle.
And this is your host, Brandy Bostic, and you've been listening to the Up From the Muck podcast.
Psalm 40, verse 2. He brought me up from a desolate pit, out of the muddy clay, and set my feet on a rock, making my steps secure.